Welcome to the Busy Pastor Podcast. If you're interested in leadership and ministry coaching, go to busypastor.org/coaching. Join the Busy Pastor community today by going to busypastor.org, filling out the form, and you will receive more free resources, starting with our Fab 5 resource, helping you determine the 5 things only you can do. Episode 35 of the Busy Pastor Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Welcome to all of our new listeners. My name is Greg Gibson. I'm here with my co-host, Pastor Trent Stewart, the lead pastor at Foothills Church. And we have a special guest again with us today, Pastor Taylor Knight. And Taylor, your position here at Foothills is what?
Yeah, I am the connection pastor.
The connections pastor.
Yeah.
And do a lot with small groups as well.
Yes, yeah, I oversee our discipleship process, the journey, and then small groups.
Yep. And so, Pastor Trent, you've known Taylor for a long time.
Yeah.
Tell us about how you guys met and his journey to FC.
Yeah, I had the privilege of knowing Pastor Taylor for much, if not all of his life, since he was young, but really got to know him when he was in high school, when I was the student pastor at the church that his family attended in Knoxville. And so he was in the student ministry. He started as the soundboard director.
If I had that good of a title, that's awesome.
I should have thought of that title back then. But yeah, so he was in my small group. He did all things media at that time, and so I've known him for a long time and been a privilege to see his growth, and glad to have him at FC.
Yeah, and we have history, the three of us actually. Mm-hmm. So. The 20-second story on backpacking.
So
together.
we live close to the Smoky Mountains, and so we backpack. We used to quite a bit, not so much anymore, but used to get up there. And one of the first hikes that all three of us went on together, it was the first hike. We get about halfway up the trail, several miles, to only realize that we forgot to bring the stakes. And
who was responsible for the stakes?
Well,
he had one job.
And he goes by the name Taylor Knight.
Guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged.
So we had to hike back down the mountain, go get the steaks. And you might be wondering, why are you guys eating steaks in the mountains? And my response is, why wouldn't we eat steaks?
Yeah.
Well, you travel that far up into the mountains, you might as well build a fire and eat red meat.
And we had no idea what we were doing. We were hiking cans of soup, and our bags are 75 pounds.
Yeah. But those steaks were good. We got them, and so
we made it happen. So welcome, Taylor Knight, to the Busy Pastor Podcast. And what we want to draw out of you today is, in particular, our coaching ministry here at FC. And so when we, if you go back and listen to a previous episode, the episode will be in the show notes. But if you go back and listen to this episode on our leadership pipeline, you're going to hear an in-depth discussion on that. But talk a little bit about, just kind of as an introductory conversation here, about our leadership pipeline here to draw our listeners into what does that look like at Foothills Church?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely don't want to go and belabor what you've already taught, but just to review those levels. We have the most basic level of leadership at FC is really just a volunteer, someone who serves in really any position. It's an entry-level position.
Yeah.
You can serve there.
And when you say basic level of leadership, volunteers are leading themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Then we have team leaders, and they are leading volunteers. Mm-hmm. We have coaches that we're going to talk about, and coaches are leading team leaders.
And or small group leaders, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, we would consider that same level of leadership. And then you get into ministry directors and our senior leadership. But yeah, coaches are right there in the middle, and that's what we're going to talk about.
Are coaches paid at Foothills?
No, they are not.
These are all volunteers.
They're paid in encouragement and love.
Yes.
In heaven, there will be many crowns.
And light roast coffees.
That's right. The occasional gift card to your local coffee shop. But yeah, and really, I would say coach is probably the highest level of leadership that is not paid at our church, which is awesome. It's a huge honor.
Yeah.
For sure. We do have staff members who are paid who do serve as coaches. So
absolutely.
So it's a kind of a cross.
Couple hats there.
Yeah, cross world. So So when it comes to being a coach here at Foothills Church, so talk to me about the prerequisites. So you're not showing up on day one and saying, "Oh, hey, you're loud, you look like a leader. Why don't you go ahead and lead leaders?" I mean, when it comes to team leaders and small group leaders. So what are you looking for in this person?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, we're looking for alignment. So that alignment comes through our partnership. So obviously you have to be a partner of our church, and that starts at the beginning of our journey process, the discipleship process. So partnering with us in our mission and vision. Then, just a basic tenet of leadership. You can't lead anywhere you haven't been. Mm-hmm. And so we want to see that coaches have been a small group leader before, that they've been in that leadership position.
Been there, done that.
Exactly. Got that t-shirt. And then we would even prefer specifically that not only have they been in that role for a season, but they have specifically successfully branched their small groups that they've led. And so meaning that they've established a co-leader in the group they've led and seen their group multiply.
Let's talk about branching for a second.
Sure.
That's a great topic. Why do we branch, and why do you even use that word branch?
Yes. Okay. So I'll start with the word. So branch is a more affirming word because it feels like you're splitting up the group. That's what people say. They'll intuitively say, "Why are you splitting this up?"
You don't want to use split.
No, exactly. You don't want to use that word. Branch is affirmative, and honestly, it's a word that's synonymous with growth, which is what our church does. We are growing not just in depth, but multiplication numerically. And so that branching process is really twofold. It's branching because it's established a leader. So a co-leader has been trained and equipped over time to step up into that team leader level role, small group leader level role. And then simultaneously, now that leader is ready to be kind of commissioned to disciple in that way, to lead in that way. And so the most ideal form of that is they take half of that group with them. So they've got a good core of people. And then it opens up two groups with more room for people to be discipled at our church.
Yeah. And the Lord added to their number daily those
exactly.
who were being saved.
Acts 2. 100%.
Like if you don't want more people to be discipled, meet Jesus, then what are you even doing?
Yeah.
Like this is the Great Commission. And so, the hard thing I think is for people to be in a group, love the people that are in their group, and we all have been there. We understand like it's hard because we have relationships and we've been meeting with them, for a year or plus, whatever that looks like. And to branch, that means some of you guys are not going to be in my group, and that can be hard. But we call those gospel goodbyes. Those are moments where it is difficult, but it is necessary for the kingdom. And let's just be honest, we still live in the same area. We can always go. You can always come over to my house, and we can always be in relationships. But that's a great way to explain why that's an important and a great name. Okay, back to what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Any more prerequisites that we have?
Yeah, I'd say the only other prerequisite would just be having completed our discipleship process, meaning they've not only partnered, but they've come through that first class, base camp, camp 2, discovering their God-given design, their gifting, their the way God's created them, their direction for growth, and then finally camp 3, where we're equipping them to be a spiritual leader. They have to have been through that whole process. Again, alignment, affirmation, and then equipping to be a spiritual leader at FC.
They've demonstrated that they are, fulfilling that role in a healthy way. They're doing well. They've done it. They've been there. So yeah, those are all a part of that.
Yeah, you mentioned a season. Is there a length of time?
Yeah,
you're looking for them to be a small group leader?
Yes, at least 6 months.
At least 6 months.
Most of our coaches, though, have been small group leaders for years, to be honest. Like our current coaches, every single one of them have been small group leaders for years. And it takes, 2 to 3 years to have led a group, branched it, trained up, that whole experience takes that amount of time. So
it'd be a special circumstance to have a coach with less than a year under his belt at FC. It would be somebody that we have known or that's done it well somewhere else. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Are coaches leading small groups too?
Yeah. They, it's not really a have to thing, but honestly, most of them want to. Right. They still want to be in that level of leadership, getting to still be able to relate to that. And it helps inform the coaching that they do. But yeah, it's not a requirement that they do that. and I've even encouraged some just to give themselves capacity to coach leaders. I've encouraged them to maybe even take a season away from leading a small group. I've done that, but yeah, it's not a hard rule.
Absolutely, and so just very practically. So when we talk about a small group leader becoming a coach, right? So I want to kind of just dive into that for a second. So walk us through how you recruit someone to be a coach. You're in relationship with these people already. You're seeing them branch groups, but just go as practical as you possibly can when it looks like you're bringing someone, onboarding them into kind of that coaching leadership position.
Yeah. So just like in any ministry, your greatest recruiters are the people who are already bought into that ministry. There's no greater, I hate to use this word, but greater salesman, if you will, for the people who are already in the midst of that ministry. And so the first thing we would do is an existing coach who is looking at the leaders that are currently leading, is watching them lead, watching them eventually branch their group, establishing a co-leader. And as they watch them do that, they're affirming that leadership. And honestly, semester over semester, I'm asking our coaches, hey, what leads do we have? Who's ready to take that step of leadership? Who's ready to be that kind of leader? And so there's an affirmation process of that coach saying, okay, I believe that Joe Bob is ready to go. Joe Bob has branched his group once after having established a co-leader. He's bought in, he's aligned, he's a healthy leader, he's got healthy groups. And I think he's ready to take this step. I, as one of our pastors, affirm that as well. We present them with a job description. So, hey, Joe Bob, I think that this is a step of leadership for you. I think you're ready to do this. I think you're qualified to do that. I see you've gone through the discipleship process. You've been equipped to lead. You align with us, affirming all those things. Here's what we expect of a coach. Here's the time commitment. Here's the expectations, qualifications, etc. I think you'd be good for this. Give them some time to think about that, pray about that.
Yeah.
Follow up. Okay, Joe Bob's ready to go. I want to take this step of leadership. And we have training videos, and then there's just the continual development of me to coaches saying, here's what's expected of you. Here's how this goes, and our coaches are regularly meeting to do those things.
How many videos are they watching?
Yeah, so almost I would say at least 3 videos for every level of training or leadership.
And are those professionally done? Are those you on your laptop? What are those?
It's I consider our production team here professional, so they've shot those things. But honestly, it's nothing super polished. It's nothing like we're not going for production value. We're going for disseminating information.
That's what I'm getting at. Like the guys listening to this, if they wanted to, open up their iPhone and record them teaching, that would be perfectly fine.
Absolutely.
And that would, and the reason why we do videos is because people are on different time schedules, and they can absorb that content on their own time when they have that carved out. And it's not, relayed on your schedule, their schedule to come here in person to do that much faster. It's a great way to do that. Yeah. And you're also having those one-on-one meetings with them anyway throughout the time to talk about even more important things, as they are making this decision.
So they're onboarded. Someone's, Joe Bob, great name,
yes,
by the way. He's coaching small group leaders now. What does that practically look like? What are his rhythms? Assuming Joe Bob is a man, what do his rhythms look like, as a coach?
Yeah. Well, so I'll say this. Being a coach is really just relational discipleship with a focus on leadership. Mm-hmm. So it's all discipleship. It's all leading in that way. And we're specifically coaching small group leaders as leaders. And so how you're discipling them is focused on that. The 3 things that I've asked every coach to do on a semester basis is this. Meeting with each of the small group leaders that they coach one-on-one. And so they're doing that at least once, twice, 3 times a semester. And that's, how are you doing spiritually? Like how's your marriage? How's work? How are kids? How's your group? Those things. Then they're meeting with all of their small group leaders collectively once a semester. And what's great about that is that provides a forum for them to develop and train all of those leaders at once,
Yeah.
but also gives a forum to ask questions, answer questions. And every leader, it's a value of ours that it's easy to feel alone in leadership.
Yeah.
And especially as a small group leader, you feel like you're kind of a lonely man on an island sometimes. And that forum allows that loneliness to be just eliminated.
Yeah.
Right.
And then last thing is visiting their small group meeting to see their small group leader in action. So this allows them to actually see what they need to coach.
Right.
Yeah. That's important. The leaders need a sounding board. They need hey, this is an issue and a problem in our group. And these are just practical ways to solve these. And it doesn't have to be a pastor. It doesn't have to be. These guys have been doing this for a long time. They know how to, answer these questions and encourage and pray with and those kinds of things. And so it gets our people involved in like, oh my gosh, they're actually a part of making disciples who are making disciples.
Yeah.
And it's not just reliant on paid professionals, in quotation marks to handle all the business. No, this is the church being the church.
That's right.
It's Ephesians 4, right?
Yeah.
Equipping the saints for the work of ministry, the only one sentence job description that we really have as pastors. And I think that's incredible. Yeah. So, okay. So there's those three things those are the asks, right? So you're asking to meet once a month with a small group leader, once a season with a small group leader, and define the season again. That's January to May.
Yeah, just like a school semester.
Okay, school semester. So there's two real seasons in kind of our small group calendar with breaks in the summer months, and then they're meeting collectively with all the groups together, and then they're visiting each group.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's a big commitment to ask someone to step in, meet with these people. You are now forming them, discipling them, leading them.
You're giving them a large leadership mantle.
Yeah.
You're empowering them in this way to serve others. It's I think a powerful, position.
Yeah, it is. And so, you're not just releasing them to do this ministry on their own, on an island. So as in your position as someone who leads our coaches who lead team leaders and lead small group leaders, what does that look like for you? So how are you developing them? How are you pastoring them? Talk me through your rhythms there.
Yeah. Well, as with any layer of leadership, honestly, constantly reminding of the vision and strategy. That's like the first most basic thing that we're doing every time we're meeting, every time I'm even just sending out a group text, just reminding them, here's what we're after, here's the win. That's super important because it's so easy as pastors, we swim in this stuff all day, every day. And so the vision is in front of us all day, like we're the ministry, all those things. But these guys are managers down at the factory. They own their own business. They're swimming in something else, you know.
Yeah.
And certainly, they're believers. The mission of God is in front of them. But this language and this strategy and the details of what we're after, you have to constantly remind them of that. The other thing that we're training and developing consistently is as we meet together, usually 4 times in a semester. So me with small group coaches, just sitting down in person, and really we have just a really open conversation about the health of their groups. So, okay, Greg, how are the groups that you're coaching going? How and in very open forum, and then there's an opportunity for questions there if need be. But just health is a big word for me when it comes to leaders and small groups. And so we're just kind of talking about that, assessing that. And then
when are you doing that? Sorry to interrupt you. What does that look like? Is that a morning, afternoon? Are you asking these people to come back at night?
Yeah.
How are you trying to get busy people together for another thing?
Yeah. Well, for us, what's worked is the mornings, early mornings, before you got to go into the office, before you got to take the kids to the school, whatever it is. That seems to be the most consistent thing. So, and I learned early on, bring food.
Yeah.
I got Chick-fil-A ready to go. We're rocking that. And so that brings everybody together, get some good food to start the day, and have some good conversation around those groups.
Good.
And it's, there's been times like as we enter into the semester, pulling up a Zoom call just for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
That's really convenient, really easy. You can do that, after the kids are down.
Yeah.
And you can just, I'm not really doing hardcore developing in that. That's really just, hey, we're getting ready to start a small group season. Here's 4, more task level things that you need to keep in mind. Kind of a check-in of sorts.
Yeah.
But the deep work we're doing in person in those morning meetings.
Yeah. Questions like, how can I lead you better? What are you excited about? What are you, what's frustrating you right now?
Yeah.
Like, what are the things in your small group that are, challenging you? Those are questions, you need 3 or 4 questions and boom, you've got everything you need to be able to resource them and help them and point them in the right direction.
Have those follow-up conversations if need be. Yep. Yeah, that's great. And then you were going to say another thing before I interrupted about the time of the actual meetings.
Oh, no, you're good. Yeah. I think I was going to say the next thing that we do actually in the training and developing, you kind of alluded to this earlier, Pastor Trent, just empowering coaches, empowering them.
Yeah.
And specifically empowering them to problem solve because and we joked about this earlier before we started the podcast, but like Moses in the Old Testament, all these problems are coming to him, thousands of people, right? And, not all of us are pastoring thousands of people, but still having to handle all the problems is not realistic. You've got to empower other people to, whether it's administrative problems, relational issues, administrative details, obstacles of just like childcare and even pressing them to accomplish the vision. Like, have you found a co-leader? Why or why not?
Yeah.
Let me help you do that. You just got to empower coaches to be thinking about those things and helping and making sure they have the ownership to press into that.
That story, obviously with Moses, his father-in-law comes to him and he says, hey, man, you just rely on yourself to answer all of these questions and solve all these problems. Get in groups of hundreds, 50s, and so it's just one of those leadership principles of empowering, your people. And it goes back to our 1-sentence job description, to equip the saints.
Yeah.
So let the, the people who are qualified, have the heart, have the skills, let them lead and disciple others. I mean, get out of their way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I can affirm that, all that you have kind of shared for this episode, so I oversee our multi-site strategy here at FC, but I also serve as one of your coaches. So hearing, you say all of the things that you've said, I can affirm to our listeners, yes, this is actually happening. I am getting the text from Taylor. I'm probably one of your worst coaches when it comes to,
No.
Connecting back. But I'm coming to the 7 a.m. Chick-fil-A breakfast, and I'm involved with the other coaches and, and working to establish coaches in my spheres as well and kind of move out of that world. So man. So thank you for all you do, when it comes to leading, our small group ministry and taking our small group leadership to a next level, another layer of leadership when it comes to our coaches.
Yeah. And, there's guys probably thinking, okay, how do I even start this?
Yeah.
Like, what do we do? Well, I will tell you, it's one of the hardest ministries we had to get going. And it went through several, phases and good moments, not so great moments. But I think you've got to do that hard work of seeing, your top small group leader right now, maybe, and just saying, all right, Joe Bob, you're JB, you're the man. I'm going to focus in on him being a coach. And,
That's right.
It's August, September, January, you're going to be my first coach. And so you're going to have breakfast with him, every other week. You're going to do some training videos. You're going to give him, the pointers that he needs. And then you're going to release him to oversee 3 or 4 other small groups and just give him the empowerment, give him everything we've talked about now in this episode to begin to do that. And then from there, you're continuing to find the next guy. It really is one person at a time. You might be able to grab 2 or 3 guys, but give them the ministry description, what you need, what you're asking them to do, and then just make a goal. Just say by January, you're going to release them and then begin to establish this and make adjustments along the way. But one of the greatest things you as a pastor will do is give this authority, give this leadership to other qualified men and women in your church that can actually lead others to lead small groups.
Yep. Equip the saints for the work of ministry. So yeah, thank you for being on today's episode. Pastor Taylor, thank you for all that you do for our small group leaders at Foothills. And so just as Pastor Trent said, this is the most important thing. One of the most important things that you can do is empower your leaders to lead in this way. So let's be busy with the right things as we go about our pastoring in our ministries and watch what God does through us. Thank you for listening to the Busy Pastor Podcast. As we close today's episode, we want to invite you to do a few things. Join the Busy Pastor community today by going to busypastor.org and filling out the form. You'll receive more free resources, starting with our Fab 5 resource, helping you determine the 5 things only you can do. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Busy Pastor. If you like today's episode, subscribe to the Busy Pastor and leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. For more resources, join the Busy Pastor community by going to busypastor.org. The Busy Pastor Podcast is produced by Andrew Lindstrom, video production Jake Tipton, audio engineer Brian Papick, music by Brandon Sharp, and graphics by Zach Shaddix. See you next week. Until then, let's be busy with the right things. Thank you so much for tuning into our YouTube page. Hit subscribe, share it with your friends, and don't forget to comment below.
New episodes come out every Thursday. For more content and to join the Busy Pastor community, visit busypastor.org.